Avengers Endgame has arrived, giving us answers to all of those mysteries that built up in the 12 months following Infinity War's shocking conclusion, and rounding out the first 3 phases of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The movie is many things. It's thrilling, emotional, funny, silly, and even a bit messy. But perhaps above all else, it is absolutely full of surprises. It's rare that you go into a blockbuster nowadays with very little idea of how things are going to play out. But apart from a rough notion of the framework, they have a plan, it doesn't work, they go back in time, there is a lot in the movie that, to paraphrase Quicksilver, fans just didn't see coming. Too soon? A lot of that is down to the nature of the movie, which, because of the fact it's a time travel flick and needs to tie together pieces from 21 other films, is able to throw a lot of ideas into the mix. But it's also thanks to Marvel's marketing strategy for the film too. So, I'm Yoon from What Culture, and here's what we got versus what was advertised with Avengers Endgame. Number 5. What Marvel advertised. Back in January, Marvel chief Kevin Feige said that reports the trailers wouldn't show anything beyond the first 15 to 20 minutes were somewhat accurate, indicating that everything we were going to see in the promotional material was, even being conservative and stretching that time frame just from the first act of the film. Within those trailers, then, what we had were teasers of what seemed like 2 different plans. One where the heroes would go to defeat Thanos and get the stones back, which would fail, and then the one involving the quantum realm and those lovely new white suits. Tonally, it was fairly dark and a bit miserable, with a real focus on the grief felt by the surviving heroes, with the shots of the support group and the Statue of Liberty giving the movie a serious The Leftovers vibe. There were atmospheric shots of Tony Stark in space, lots of black and white imagery to remind us of the Fallen, and the whole thing had the air of being quite a serious, somber piece, alongside having some moments of explosive action. Number 4. What Marvel hid/altered. On top of telling us that the footage we'd see in the trailers was almost completely cut from the first 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, Marvel also did their best to hide or alter as much as possible even within those scenes in order to throw us off the scent. Bruce Banner was the most notable example, with him getting a grand total of around 5 seconds screen time overall, and without any sighting of Hulk. But it didn't end there. They hid from the Quantum Realm mission, they played around with editing Black Widow's hair a lot to try and obfuscate the time jump, or at least confuse us with regards to when it actually happened, and Thanos is hardly in any of it, with the Mad Titan only really being revealed in that final trailer. There's a shot of Thor wielding Stormbreaker that doesn't even exist. They have Tony looking far healthier in the space scenes than he does in the film itself. The training scene of Black Widow doesn't appear, the Outriders were edited out of a Hawkeye sequence, and there are a few other scenes changed or missing. Some of this is simply logistics. For example, VFX not being ready, but a lot of it was done to hide major plot elements too, including Professor Hulk, Fat Thor, Cap's shield being broken and him wielding Mjolnir, and Giant Man, which, to be fair, are all elements you wouldn't want spoiled in the trailers. Heck, even the toys got in on the act, whether deliberately, i.e. fake leaks, or because they were simply for merchandise only, with one LEGO set showing Iron Man's Hall of Armors and another a supersized version for War Machine, neither of which materialized in the film. Number 3. The major character differences. That obfuscation leads to a lot of differences within certain characters compared to what we've been led to expect. Professor Hulk had been heavily theorized, so that wasn't much of a surprise if you'd spent months obsessing over the film online. But to general audiences, it's a big reveal, and there's still a difference between speculating it will happen and fully seeing it in action. The other major character arc they completely hid was Thor. The trailers only slightly hint at his trouble dealing with his failure to kill Thanos, whereas that forms the crux of his arc in the movie, with another twist too. As was completely hidden by the trailers, the Thor 5 years into the future has put on a little weight. I mean, he's still Chris Hemsworth, and so yes, you still would, but he's not rocking that God of Thunder physique anymore. Lebowski, as Tony Stark puts it, is a perfect description, but it goes beyond appearance too. This is a Thor who is suffering from PTSD and has lost the huge confidence he had developed after Ragnarok, but responds to that in a way that isn't the moping or quest for vengeance expected by the trailers. It may not be all that well handled in the film, but it is very different to what was anticipated. While Captain America and Iron Man's arcs were reasonably clear going in, at least in a vague sense, that wasn't the case with Thor. Then there are 2 of the most powerful characters in the MCU. Captain Marvel and Thanos. The arrival of Captain Marvel was massively hyped by the post-credits scenes of both Infinity War and then her solo film, both of which effectively count as marketing for Endgame, while her introduction was a big deal in the trailers too. In the film, however, she goes on the first mission and then almost completely disappears from the story until late in the final battle when she helps return to save the day. By contrast, Thanos was hardly in the trailers at all, and yet he's still the main antagonist of the movie, but again with another twist. The Thanos of Infinity War is killed off shockingly early, and we then spend the rest of the movie with the Thanos from Guardians of the Galaxy from 2014. Number 2, the story and tonal differences. It's not just some of the major character beats that are very different to what was advertised, but large portions of the story and tone as well. For a start, let's revisit the idea of the footage being almost completely from the first 15 to 20 minutes. A lot of it is, but there's also a pretty decent chunk that's taken from quite late in the game, since they did show off quite a bit of the battle at the Avengers compound. Iron Man and Cap going face to face with Thanos, Cap strapping on his shield, and Ant-Man leaping off a pencil ware all from there, albeit with some digital alterations. Nebula in battle, meanwhile, was from when they travelled back to 2014. But more than that is there was no hint in the trailers of how the story would go in order to get to such a point. Yes, we knew it would be time travel, and even that isn't completely explicit in the advertising, but it wasn't clear what the exact purpose of it would be, where they'd be going, or what rules they'd establish. If anything, it was mostly assumed that they'd follow a more typical time travel narrative. They go back, change the past, and go back to the future, rather than all of the branching timelines we get in the film itself. Tonally, it's very different too. While Marvel films always have humour, there wasn't much of it in the trailers, nor was there a sense of dread as there was with Infinity War's marketing. Instead, it was simply very dark, sad, and suggested that the theme of loss and attempts to move on would dominate proceedings. And to a degree they do, but there is also a lot of humour in the film. There are a huge number of lighter moments to counteract the dark, and also with its time travel elements and things like, you know, a rat saving the goddamn universe, it's also utterly ridiculous, but in a good way. Number 1, how Endgame's marketing improved the film. All of that amounts to the experience of watching Avengers Endgame being very different to what you might expect having seen the trailers, and that's absolutely a good thing. That's not to say that the trailers were bad, because they did a great job of building the hype and teasing certain elements. But it's also far too common for marketing to give away too much, and even though Marvel didn't just keep things to the first 15 minutes, the scenes later on were almost entirely lacking in context, and it was a context that would have been very difficult to piece together completely regardless of how well informed you were going into the film itself. That meant we had an idea of what to expect in some areas, so we weren't caught completely off guard earlier on, but allowed the film to shock and surprise us as we moved through the story. By the marketing only offering up an indication of one tone and vague hints of the film's plot, it allowed for tonal shifts, the character developments, and the plot twists to work so much better. You go in and there's so much, whether minor details or huge elements, that you won't have expected, and it means you get to have that thrill of being blown away in the cinema. That is a huge success of the movies, but it's also a big success of the marketing too. And that was our look back at what we got versus what we were advertised with Avengers Endgame. Did the film manage to catch you off guard? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and then head back on over to whatculture.com for more MCU musings every day. I'm Ewan, I've been reading the wonderful words of James Hunt, who you can find on Twitter at JamesHunt182. You can find me on the same hell site over at Ewan Ruins Things, and that's all really. I'll see you next time. Bye!
Look, my son, look at the marvel that I have created. Comics. They called me a fool for trying to put a dead meme onto a t-shirt. A damn bold fool! A damn bold fool with an ass that won't quit. It got quite personal towards the end there. But look who's laughing now! Quiet! Quiet, my son, my ugly son, for my other creation rises. Look at the quality fabric, hand-stitched by blind orphans. The perfect letter spacing calculated so meticulously that Rich Hudson had an erection for months about it. And a colouring so deep that I had to buy the dye off the dark web. Oh, for God's sake, Josh!
Sorry.
Marvel. Oh no, the beast has grown angry, angered by our drab fashion choices. I am such a fool to think that it wouldn't try to infect us with its perfect design. Quick, we must do something to appease the beast. Why don't we buy one from shop.whatculture.com? Look, it's already got Scott Nash.
Oh no!
But where can I buy one? Are you kidding me? This is why I don't give you any extra lines. But also at shop.whatculture.com. Quick, let's go and buy one right now. Let's go buy one right now.
Right now.
Oh, don't you try hard now. You've already lost your bit. Oscar's in the f***ing bin. There we go. Doesn't that look better? I feel so virile and alive, and it's also fixed your hump. That's actually pretty good. Now, do yourself a favour and act like your mum and spread the love, aka her legs, and buy yourself one of these glorious dead memes on a t-shirt, courtesy of this handsome chap right here. You're very, very welcome.
Cut!
Jesus Christ, mine is so
It's
itchy.
all wet. What?
It stinks. I pissed on yours.
The worst font ever.
I want to die.